This is one of the best warrior builds in the entire game for PoE 2. It can take on any pinnacle boss with no worries whatsoever. Max level Zesht, all the ritual bosses, Delirium, as well as clear maps with pretty insane speed. And honestly, you can get this up and running for pretty cheap for being able to do every single piece of the in-game content with no worries whatsoever. You can see we can basically clear max level pinnacle bosses instantly and have no trouble running anything in the game. But first I'll show you how the build basically works, so that way you have an idea of how it plays and why it's so powerful. For generally clearing maps, we're using Leap Slam as a singular ability where we can basically kill every single rare and every single regular enemy throughout any map or any level we do. This is the only skill we need. You can Leap Slam into a pack, explode the entire pack, never have to do anything else. However, when we're focusing on our pinnacle bosses, we're specifically leveraging a couple things. The main three things are going to be Earth Shatter, Forge Hammer, and essentially a shout that you can get set up super easily. Basically, the way this works for bosses and pinnacle fights, basically you can set up these Earth Shatters all around you before a boss even spawns, throw down a Forge Hammer, and then shatter them with a shout, causing tons of damage. And then you can go right back to Earth Shattering, triggering not only after effects, but tons of damage from the fissures itself that the Forge Hammer actually spawns. And like you can see with the pinnacle boss here, we're going to throw down these Earth Shatters. We're then going to throw down our hammer. We're going to shatter them, and then we're also going to continue to Earth Shatter, absolutely annihilate this boss's health very quickly. Keep in mind, my gear is not even close to perfect. It's actually pretty trash, but we're still able to delete everything extremely quickly. This is easily the warrior build for you to get you rolling through the end game super easy and cheap. But first, thanks to G2A for sponsoring today's video. G2A has some of the best deals on the market on games and software. They have amazing deals but put security first. G2A takes a priority in stopping scams, so they can make sure the site is completely trustworthy. Scammers can target buyers and sellers of digital items like games by impersonating trusted sources and tricking people into giving away their access. G2A is using AI to help spot these scams on a consistent basis. There are tons of scam techniques, from deep fake videos and voices, and something you should never do is click on suspicious links or domains. Keep an eye out, because scammers are always out there, and even platforms like G2A.com use tons of countermeasures to prevent scams. Remember to always be vigilant. At G2A, make sure to always use official channels and apps. Be careful of offers that are too good to be true, or requests to share data like your passwords. Make sure to click the link in the description and check out some of these amazing deals G2A currently has that might not last very long. Thanks G2A for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. Ideally, we're leveraging a few things in the skill tree. The first big thing is Earthbreaker, so we get a 25% chance for slam skills to use Aftershocks. This build runs insane on Aftershocks, meaning we deal tons and tons of extra free damage. You also get some other perks for Aftershocks here with Behemoth. You get a 5% chance. You also get an additional 10% chance here, as well as another 12% chance here. Is automatically 27%. When you add this other 25, that goes up to 57%. And then our main Aftershock skills, when we slot the Aftershock gems in them, that gives us 35% as well. Meaning we get a 92% chance to Aftershock. We're also going to be taking the max life node here, but if you can stack enough max life on your build, you can definitely go for Ancestral Empowerment for extra Ancestral boosted slams on every second slam that you use, if you don't need the 15% max life. Just to give you an idea, my health is currently only 3,200, but it's enough to play the entire end game. If you can get this around 4K, you can get rid of this perk, go for this, and you'll be doing a lot more damage. Now we're splitting this up really based off weapon set. Now, ideally, you can reallocate some of these armor nodes if you would like. I basically took these so I can get as close to 90% as possible. But the main goal, obviously, is you want to get to 90 for the most protection, but make sure you have Polished Iron and Blade Catcher for defending with the 200% to extra critical hits, as well as the stun threshold. Something we're taking from an overall perspective as well is all increases to our one-handed attack damage. Now, you can definitely run this with a two-handed weapon. So if you're already transitioning from a two-handed weapon build, take the two-handed weapon perks instead of the one-handed weapon. That's completely fine as well. Are going to be the strength and extra damage nodes here. We're also going to be taking the increased armor here and the additional damage with maces. Also, Resolute Technique, Prism Guard, as well as some of these other nodes for increases for our armor to apply to elemental damage types. As you can see, we're hovering around 90% with all of those elemental damage reduction stats for fire, cold, and lightning. And then these armor nodes up here, especially against projectile attacks, as well as blood magic for converting our skill cost to life. This is a big one because we get a huge damage bump from a lot of our skills this way, as well as the physical damage and increased skill speed up here. Increased physical damage with this build is your primary key stat, and if you focus on scaling that alone, you're going to do very, very well. Now, the main thing here is we're splitting this into 2 weapon sets, which is focused around attack area damage and clearing. So basically upgrades to our increased area of effect as much as humanly possible for our leap slam. That way we can clear the entire screen in a single leap slam. You can see we're taking more of that over here, more of that over here, more right here, and all of the area of effect attack nodes right here, as well as this spot down here. 2, which is our heavy hitting high damage set, which is going to be used to basically clear anything with a ton of health. We're focused on taking a couple of different things. The first is going to be this increased skill speed. We're focused on skill and attack speed here because the quicker we can hit enemies, the more damage we can dish out. Also, this extra damage against burning and extra fire damage as well. Some other things we have over here is we're taking all these increased attack damage nodes, and then this increased melee damage at close range up here. Another important one is taking Skull Crusher, so we get 20% more damage against heavy stunned enemies with maces. And then down here we have this line over here that's actually going to be pretty important. It helps reduces slowing potency of debuffs on you. This is especially important for bosses, as well as the increased attack speed. Here you can see we get 15% increased attack speed if you've been hit recently, meaning you're basically granted that almost all of the time. Now, one of the keys to make this build setup completely OP, again, is leveraging our build sets in a super easy way so we don't have to swap between our weapons. Again, the main way in order to do this, you can see our leap slam is currently set for our weapon set 2. Again, our weapon set 2 for our skills is going to be essentially the attack area damage and the area of effect nodes that we have here in green. So making sure you set up your weapon set 2 specifically to these kind of nodes, as well as for your leap slam, is important. One of the big reasons you should just copy how I have it is also because we want to make sure that when we use our Regwald's Ferocity and swap it over to our leap slam, it's taking advantage of that weapon set 2 perk within here. And the same goes for Earth Shatter, which we're going to have in our weapon set 1. You want to make sure it's in weapon set 1 so that way you have those specific bonuses for more attack speed. Again, our leap slam set at weapon set 2, just copy all the skills and everything just like I have it. Our Forge Hammer is set to weapon set 1, again for more DPS. You see if we set it to weapon set 2, our DPS immediately drops, right? So we want it at the most. And then Earth Shatter, again, the same thing. But as long as you have Earth Shatter and Forge Hammer on your weapon set 1 and your Leap Slam as weapon set 2 and the proper weapon sets set up in terms of the passives here, you should be good to go. Or super easy to use without having to switch back and forth between your weapons. Where you can see weapon set 1 has our red passives lit up, and weapon set 2 has our green passives. Now here I'll go over the skill gems and support gems really quickly. Ideally for Mace Strike, we're using Mace Strike as a backup ability here, but again, we're just slotting in some of these gems for extra stun buildup, free rage, and overall just damage nodes for extra DPS in case we happen to need it. Primarily though, you'll never need to use it because you're going to be using Leap Slam. Now, specifically with Rage 3, for gaining free rage on hit and additional attack speed, meaning we can jump across the map and clear quicker, momentum for additional damage when jumping over 2 meters, magnified area for that increased area of effect, Aftershock 2 for that aftershock percentage, and then you can use the attack speed gem here if you don't happen to have this yet, but we're going to be swapping in this bloodletting support gem. This is going to make it so we get 2% of damage as extra physical damage per 10 life cost. You can see this skill basically costs 200 mana or 200 life when we cast it, meaning this will actually give us 40% of damage as extra physical damage, which is a huge damage buff for around 2 divines. This is an amazing support gem and takes your skill to the next level, literally bumping it up from 16k damage to 30,000. Trust me, it's a lot of extra DPS. And as I'll show you in a minute, we actually swap this back and forth with Earth Shatter, depending on the content we're doing, but when we're clearing, we're using Bloodletting and Leap Slam. Now, Berserk, we're going to be running this with Vitality 1 and Cannibalism, so that way we get that maximum life recovered on kill, but also regenerate 1% per second, or extra life regen. And you can see our total life regen here per second is almost 200. It helps just keep us tanky and keep us alive a lot easier. Now, again, this is why you want the amulet with at least plus 35 to spirit, because we need at least 135 for all of these support gems. Obviously, Herald of Ash for clearing, and then Vitality 2, so we regenerate extra max life per second for extra life regen, magnified area for increased area of effect, compressed duration for quicker explosions with our Herald of Ash, and then Fire Mastery for +1 to level of supported fire skills. And now we're also running Bone Shatter here with Impact Shockwave, Magnified Area, Ancestral Call 2, and Rapid Attacks. This is an optional ability if you don't have the damage yet with Leap Slam to be able to fully clear packs of enemies if your weapons aren't up to that DPS range. Once they are, you can jump on a pack with Leap Slam, destroy everything. Until then, also continue to run Bone Shatter. Now for our big clearing abilities, and that's going to be first Forge Hammer. So we're using Fist of War for doubling that ancestral boost, meaning more damage. Fire Penetration 2, so we ignore enemies' fire resistance. This is important. Concentrated Area for more area damage. Ambrosia, again, like I mentioned earlier, it'll consume 20% of your max mana flask charges on use, but you gain 3% of damage as extra lightning damage per mana flask charge consumed. So 20% of our maximum mana flask charges, since we have a max of 120, is going to be 24. That means we're doing 24 times 3% of damage as extra lightning damage. That's 72% of extra damage as lightning damage. What's cool is when you actually shock an enemy, they actually get a debuff, allowing you to essentially deal an extra 20% damage to them. We're going to be able to apply that very easily with the skill on our Forge Hammer, meaning not only do we get the extra damage here, but we proc the extra 20 damage from shocking as well, as much mana as possible, and we can trigger this and basically destroy an enemy. As well as Elemental Armament for additional elemental attack damage. Now, Earth Shatter, we're using Rage 3 for granting rage on melee hit. This is going to help us generate max rage like instantaneously, as well as ramp up our attack speed even up until that point. Branching Fissures, again, to help us proc more aftershocks and more hits with our Earth Shatter on top of our Forge Hammer spiral that's on the ground. Rapid Attacks 2 for increased attack speed. Aftershock 2, so we can guarantee aftershocks, and then Rigwald's Ferocity. Again, make sure you have your high DPS damage dealing abilities in your weapon set 1. This is going to make it so you have 20% more attack speed with this setup. We're going to be using it like this when we're clearing maps. In case we happen to run into a rare enemy that we can't just Leap Slam and kill super easily, we can just Earth Shatter them super quickly to death. Now, when we're fighting pinnacle bosses, we're going to swap in, again, our Bloodletting Gem for extra DPS, so that way we can help melt them that much quicker. Additionally, here we want Infernal Cry for cooldown recovery, Raging Cry, and Tireless. And you're also going to want those same gems down here in Seismic Cry, but ideally you want that same setup right here as well. Now, to touch on the gear really quickly, again, all this stuff will be in the planner down in the description. Basically, the couple main stats here, you want max life, flat physical damage or flat overall damage stats for extra damage, as much armor as you can possibly get, increased attack speed, and then +2 to melee skills, just like we have here on our amulet. That's going to be an important thing for scaling our damage. All you have to really mainly get on the belt is the 3 resistances and max life as much as humanly possible. The max life is important. For the boots, obviously movement speed, as much increased max life as possible, and again, more resistances here as much as you can get, with something like strength additionally, but as much armor as you can get as well. For the helmet, again, we're going for max armor to max that out completely. We also want, again, maximum life, as well as different resistances. Chaos resistance is always great to get on the helmet. And again, just like our gloves, getting +% of armor also applies to elemental damage on any of these pieces is also great as well, so that way we can help max out that extra damage reduction to our elemental resistances. And then for our chest, again, same thing. You can see we have 3 resistances here, as well as max armor, and then again, as much life as humanly possible. And that armor applies to elemental damage. Again, getting 90% armor. Ideally, you're going to want 1800 plus armor on your chest at least. For the rings, we want mainly damage. Now, obviously, you're going to want your resistances to fill in wherever you need extra resistance help. You can see my resistances are barely at 75 here. I have resistance specific rings, but when I run pinnacle boss fights, I run my main damage rings just because I really don't need them. But again, focus on getting as much resistance here as you can, probably around 100% in each, as well as increased rarity. Otherwise, you're focusing on flat damage stats and max health after that. Resistances, max life, and flat damage for your rings, whether it's physical damage, lightning damage, whatever, are the biggest things you can have. If you take this ring off, it goes down to 16.5. That's a pretty big difference. The same for this ring, it goes down to 15.5. We take off both these rings, we have 14,000 compared to 18,000. That's like a 25% drop in damage. Trust me, that's a huge thing. For our amulet, you mainly are going to need spirit. Spirit, you want at least +35. We need at least 135 for this setup. The more you can get, the better. And then you can add more gems and make it even more powerful, but at least 35 is big. As well as +2 to level of all melee skills. Life regeneration per second is a big one that just keeps us even more tanky. additional max life, and then any bumps to body armor or really anything we've already covered. For our weapons, we specifically want a few things. I'm going to put a screenshot up here above me of ideally the kind of weapon you would want to build, and then I'm going to show you my weapons as well, because mine are still mid-level, like 2 div weapons, but they can still destroy anything in the game. So again, we're using one-handed weapons. You can use a two-handed weapon here in place of this. It's perfectly fine. Basically, we want as much damage here as possible. You want to stray away from things like cold damage and focus on a weapon that has physical and fire damage, or specifically just physical damage. You can get a high physical damage weapon. With all our scaling, the way we scale physical damage specifically, you're going to be doing the most damage possible. You also need +4 to level of melee skills, but you want at least +4 to level. I believe the DPS on this one is 458. And my other weapon DPS is 475. And then our other weapon over here, again, we have a split between physical and fire damage. Full out physical damage is probably the best DPS wise, but we have 23% increased attack speed. The important thing here is scale physical damage as much as possible. Now, one other thing we need, which I'll explain in a minute, is a mana flask with at least 120 charges. Ideally, you want at least 120 charges, and you also want to increase gain for charges. Not like I actually don't have that on mine, but you want to be able to regenerate these charges quickly, because as I'll show you in a minute, with our Forge Hammer, we're using a skill called Ambrosia that actually can deal extra lightning damage that can essentially stagger enemies, allowing us to do a lot more damage to them very, very quickly. Now, the basic rotation of this build is very simple. Again, when we're mapping, we're just leap slamming around the map, destroying everything. If you happen to hit an enemy that you don't completely kill by leap slamming them, you can just throw your hammer, and as soon as your hammer hits them, they'll basically just die. If they happen to not die at that point, you can use a shout, so you can use Infernal Cry, it'll blow up, and if they're still not dead, just Earth Shatter them really fast at insane speed, and they're definitely gone. That is the super easy lineup for just melting maps without ever having to worry. And again, we're regenning so much health, not only per kill, but passively through our life regen, that we basically never die. Now, when we're fighting pinnacle bosses, essentially this is the method you want to use. When you go up to a pinnacle boss or any big boss, for instance, if any pinnacle boss or boss hasn't spawned yet, you can throw down a bunch of Earth Shatters really quickly, throw down your hammer, and then when the boss actually spawns and can take damage, you can cast an Infernal Cry. It'll spawn the spirals, blow up all the Earth Shatters, and then you can continue to pound your Earth Shatters right on top of the enemy, and it's doing tons of damage, tons of aftershock damage, and overall just tons of fire damage from the Forge Hammer itself. And essentially then you can just alternate shouts. So we can Earth Shatter, throw down the hammer, explode it, continue to Earth Shatter. Once we get enough of these on the screen, use our Seismic Cry to blow all those up, continue to Earth Shatter, then we can throw down our hammer again, proc our Infernal Cry to blow those up again, trigger our spiral beneath, and then just keep doing that and triggering that over and over and over again. And as you can see, we can just basically Hulk smash enemies into the abyss. Again, this build is super fun, super easy to play, and super easy to set up. Check the link down in the description again for that full build. If you like this build, drop a like on the video, comment below if you have any upgrades to it, and don't miss these things you need to know about Path of Exile.